Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. It's good to see some people are here with their spouses. I hope that others of you who aren't here with your spouses, they're not too upset that you're here. I just got a new puppy today, in case anybody cares. It's a 9-month-old doodle. I have no idea what I was thinking when I got this dog. She has more energy than life. Welcome to ASONP. I know every single person that's in here, I do believe. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make? Okay, well, the announcements that I have, Jessica Rick, how do you pronounce her? Ricks. We still have a wait list, but we may have some openings come up if anybody's interested in taking her workshop. It's going to be March 11th, 12th, and 13th. She is our Alaska Wild judge, and she is going to be doing a presentation on how to take images with impact. She's a Rocky Mountain School of Photography instructor, and she also does programs, I think it is, for Rocky Mountain. There still is a few spots left for Art Wolf's workshop, which is July. Oh, and her workshop is $300. And it will be in Anchorage. Glenn and I found this great place to have a classroom. That's in the, what's the name of that building? The Northern Trust building, where for you old timers, where Gary King's used to be. But it's a training room, and so it's got desks and it's got a kitchen, and we'll be doing part of the time in the field and part of the time in the classroom, and we haven't figured out where we're going to shoot yet. You know, it's always a little tricky with winter, not knowing what the weather's going to be doing, but we'll find some place to go out and shoot. The other one is Art Wolf's workshop, which is July 30th, 31st, and August 1st. That one will be in Girdwood, and that is all on creative photography, using your imagination. And that workshop is $850. So if you have any interest in any of those, let me know and I'll get you on the list. We have about 6 spots left for arts, and we have a wait list for Jessica's. So without further ado, since we don't have any other announcements, do you have any announcements, Ed, you need to make, except that the Alaska Wild prints are looking gorgeous? Great. Thank you so much for doing that for us this year. It'll be our first time doing metal prints, and I'm really curious to see how the show goes. I think it's going to be fabulous because I love metal, and everybody that buys from me likes metal, or their prints now on metal. So we had a great full-day retreat in January. So we have a lot in store. I hope to be giving you a lot more information at our next meeting. And Jessica will also be presenting, doing a presentation in next month's meeting on the 14th of March, announcing all the winners of Alaska Wild and talking about how she made her decisions as far as the images that she chose. So now I would like to, to introduce Jamin Hunter Taylor. And his presentation tonight is going to be about shooting in different kinds of lighting conditions, challenging lighting conditions. And so I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. And I thought Carl was going to be doing a big introduction, so I didn't contact you earlier to get a whole bio on you, but I apologize for that. But without further ado, take it away, Jamie. Oh, yeah, sorry.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be up here and sharing my photos with you guys and some of the thought process that goes into them. So my name is Jamin Hunter Taylor, and my dad, he was a very avid outdoorsman. So he was trapping. Oh, is that not working? How's that? There we go. Great. All right. So my dad was an outdoorsman, hunted and trapped and fished in the summertime. And he lost his arm before I was born. His left arm got cut off in an accident. So after 3 girls, they kept trying and finally got a boy. And they named me Jamin, which means right hand of God. And I was supposed to be my dad's other hand. And so my dad wanted to name me Jamin Hunter Fisher Trapper Taylor. And my mom said, no, pick one. And so my dad picked Hunter. So I chose this because it comes full circle. My dad used to take me out hunting, and I never really enjoyed hunting or trapping. Trapping was too cold. But I have found myself back in the woods on my own terms, hunting animals in my own way. I can take the trophies that I take and hang them on my wall just in a different way. So I am going to share with you tonight some of what I have created. I have found that light is a beautiful thing, and it can be very dramatic. And the lack of light can actually be very dramatic. I was always, well, when I got started, I learned that the traditional way of, you shoot with the light at your back to get the best lighting on your subjects. And I found that as I grew as a photographer, as I honed my skills, I found that that's the light that I really liked the least. It felt boring to me. So I started experimenting. I was being influenced by some friends who are shooting all kinds of different light, and actually in some cases shooting with the sun out in front of them. And I thought, well, that's an interesting concept. And when I tried that, I really enjoyed the results of that. So I'm going to take you through a few. Are we okay here?
Trying to get it down a little bit. So.
Okay. Good. All right. So I'm going to take you through a few different lighting conditions, and we're going to talk about them, show some images, and we'll go from there. All right. Flat light. I found that flat light is really great for catching action. You don't get the harsh shadows, the bright blown out highlights that you get with direct sunlight. I think the cloud cover really disperses the light really nicely. It breaks it up and just kind of, you get a nice kind of light box effect when you have some cloud cover. And so there's days when I've been out when the clouds just refuse to cover that sun, and it's can be kind of a bummer. But we'll get into some photos here that kind of reflect that, and examples of shooting in flat light. And I think the screen is a little oversaturated and dark, but it still gives you an idea. This was in Denali National Park. It's actually kind of a really overcast day, but this moose, big bull, was grazing on what was left of the foliage as it was turning colors, and just a beautiful, the bulls up there are amazing. So had a blast up there shooting those bulls, but really great conditions up there because during the fall, you oftentimes get a lot of rain up there or light sprinkles. And I found that that can actually help bring out the colors in the foliage and the animals. I don't know what it is, but it just really, the wetness kind of just makes everything pop a little bit more, which is really neat. Thought this was appropriate for Valentine's Day. A little bit of a heart. But the warblers do really well in flat light. They have so much brilliant color that when you hit them with direct light, it can wash out so many of their colors. And so that flat light where you can get enough of a shutter to stop action, but it's still, you don't get any harsh shadows with that. So warblers and songbirds work really well. Thank you. I might have hit the button. It's red. Does that mean it's out of batteries? Is it on? Okay. It might go dead again. I don't know. Voted another one. I asked for 2 weeks. Oh, good. Okay, can you guys hear me? I'll speak up. So I missed some of winter this year. It was a real drag being down in Florida for a month, but I made it work. It was really wonderful. There was birds everywhere. How's that? Oh, loud. Okay. It was really like cheating. And I didn't mind. So I was actually hanging out with my mom and my son, and I took my camera with me everywhere because you never know, it's Florida. And I saw this tricolored heron fishing, swimming in the shallow water of this lake. And so I like to get a lot of separation between my subject and the best way to do that for me is to get my camera down low. So that's either requires me to be on my belly or my Z9. Actually, I can flip the screen up and just kind of do this. So I can see what's happening and kind of point it and aim it that way, which is tricky. I'm not going to lie, but I really like how that one turned out, the water and all that kind of stuff. So again, this was like really flat light, but it was bright enough to stop action. So that was really nice. These barred owl were amazing, really beautiful. This is my first time ever seeing them. And so to get a flight shot of my first time I was really happy with that. And like I said, these are a lot darker on this screen than what I actually have. So you're seeing no flash. It's just an overcast day. Let's see. It's wanting to install flash, but no. Okay. There we go. All right, caribou were on my most wanted list. This last year, I had been just chomping at the bit to get caribou. And so I went up to Denali National Park in early August and with a buddy of mine, and we nailed them. It was so fun. And again, just that flat light, clouds just breaking up the direct sunlight. So it was really nice. This was an early morning in Florida. These snail kites were just coming down and picking up snails off the water. So it was 7 in the morning or so. So the water was just flat calm and the birds would just come down and pick up these snails. And so I got one with a reflection. This was a recent find near my house there in Eagle River. It's a cute little boreal owl. I heard him calling, and so I ended up finding him. But they're beautiful. But again, that flat light is so nice because it really just allows you to do a lot in post-processing as well. It gives you a lot more flexibility in post-processing. You can play with it where like harsh lighting conditions are much, much tougher. More moose. This was up above Anchorage. I really love the birds. If anybody knows me, they know that birds are my favorite. I was actually I was a birder before I was a photographer. And I was an artist before that. But I got really interested in birds. And then I joined this Facebook group called Birds of Alaska back in like 2016. And loved the photos that I was seeing. And so that inspired me to want to paint them. And so I thought, oh, I need to get a camera so I can take reference photos and then paint them. And then I started taking photos. And then I took more photos. And I never made it to the actual drawing and painting. So I actually discovered that photography was an art form. And so when that realization hit me, then I really started to blossom, I would say, as a photographer, and really started to push myself and work on my skills and my art. I like working in all kinds of different light. I'll look for backgrounds that do special things. In this case, the soft light was hitting the back hill, and it was early morning, so it was giving it kind of like this pinkish orange glow on the water. And I was low enough that it kind of just covered the whole scene in this kind of orangey color, and it popped this little bufflehead right out of there. This was in Kodiak this past August. And this bear was crossing a river, and I was crouching down on the gravel. And when he was, you know, this is cropped in a little bit, but yeah, when he gave me the look, then I was like, time to get up and walk back to my friends who were not far away. But yeah, I don't want to let them get too close. So that's it for the flat light. There's just it opens you up to a lot more options, especially with post-processing. But that's probably one of my favorite lights to shoot in, just because it's so, I don't know, there's so much you can do with it, you know? It's just a lot of fun. I love a cloudy day for shooting. All right, so we're going to talk about braving the elements. I really love to shoot in rain. The more rain, the better. Or heavy snow. That's a lot of fun too. And so I like to go out in those times and see what I can find. So here's a redneck grebe. And I believe this was early spring, and winter wasn't quite done yet. So we got a little bit of snow as this grebe is swimming around in the open water. I don't remember what year this was, but I love just the drama that comes from all the snow falling and the elements, and it tells such a cool story of these hardy birds who show up, you know, expecting open water and breeding season, and oh, yep, it's snowing again. So it's pretty fun. I caught this little spruce hen on a road. I was driving out to the nature center in Eagle River, and I saw it on a road that I was passing by. So I pulled over, and these birds are, as you know, very tolerant, not the smartest birds. So it's great to just kind of get low on the ground and just get this nice rain as it fell down. So, and I'm always looking for something different. So when I'm culling my photos, I'm always looking for something that's a little bit different that stands out from the rest of them. And so for me on this one, it was that raised foot. It just was that piece of interest that stood out from the rest of them. And so I'll often delete most of the other ones and keep that one. Again, it's a little rain. And I forget what that is. I think that's a longspur. Thank you. Yep. On the tundra in Denali. Beautiful little bird, but again, showing just a little bit of rain, how interesting it can be when you've got some rain going in there. I think some of you will recognize this fox, but she looks great with the snow coming down, licking her lips. I think she was tasting a snowflake here, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I think the elements can really add a ton of interest to a photo. So Swainson's thrush, this is the bird that got me into photography, or got me interested in birds. I was walking with my family in Eagle River at the campground, and we were just walking. I was about 10 o'clock at night, and I heard this bird song in the woods, and I thought, what is that? That is so beautiful. I was totally enchanted by it. And I didn't find out what it was that night, but that melody kept playing in my mind. I was like, I've got to find out what bird was making that sound. And I finally did. It was the Swainson's thrush. And ever since that song has, you know, their song is just totally, it's just this otherworldly kind of beautiful song. And I love to photograph them. They're a fairly plain bird, brown and white, but I think they're beautiful. So I look for opportunities to photograph them whenever I can. And got this one last summer, late in the evening as it was raining. So that was really nice to have him stop by. Denali Highway can be an amazing place for birds. And I love to go there in this like mid-June. And usually they get a lot of rain there during that time of year, which is, for me, that's great. It's like nothing better than a bird singing in the rain. And they do that. They just hop up on something tall because they're you know, trying to establish their territories, and it's a great place to just go and get bird photos. So this is a little blackpoll warbler. Another duck that arrived a little too early. But I love the action of blurred wings. I really don't like to get completely stopped wings. I love to get just a little bit of wing blur because I love that sense of motion that comes from that. As long as I'm getting the head sharp and the eye sharp, then I want to see a little bit of that blur in the wings for that motion. Now, I love the story on this in this photo, as this ram was checking out this ewe to see if she's ready. But for me, it makes it more interesting that there was such heavy snow coming down. And this was no light snow. It was really coming down. It was coming down so hard that it was hard to focus. My autofocus was really struggling with this one. And that happens sometimes when it's, you get really heavy snow. But I made it work and came away with a photo that I'm really, really happy with. So I think that snow just adds so much more drama. Another little bird singing in the rain. The yellow warblers are so beautiful. That yellow just pops out of the greens on the tundra, and it's just, yeah, they're beautiful. One of my favorites. And their song is amazing too. All right, just a little bit more snow. Let's see, white-winged crossbill. And again, I really like to try to get photos that tell a story. Sometimes the story is more obvious than other times. And I love this one because this is the story of the one that got away. This fish is swimming away as the bear is just kind of like, oh. So yeah, it's one of my favorites. But I don't know if you can see it, but there is rain coming down. So it was raining pretty hard that day, and by the time I got back to my car, this was on the Russian River, and I was soaked. So, little hummingbird in the rain, and they're so small you'd think that a raindrop would be pretty harmful to them, but they're such a hardy little bird and fast, super fast. So you got to be ready for them. This one was coming to a feeder, so I just kind of had to be ready with. I had my autofocus locked on the feeder. That way when the bird came by, I was close enough that I could kind of nab focus on him pretty easily. I had an amazing encounter a few years ago with four lynx. I got a call from a buddy of mine, and he said, hey, there's some lynx out at the nature center. Do you want to go in the morning? I said, yes, I do. And the chances that you're actually going to see them after they've been seen the day before is, pretty unlikely. But I mean, what else are we going to do, right? So we went out there. I didn't even get to the parking lot, and this male lynx was standing in the middle of the parking lot in the morning. And so he was following a female, and the female had two nearly grown kittens with her. And so we hung out with them for 3 or 4 hours as they just hung around the nature center. And this male, he came up on this snowbank and just laid down, and then it started to snow. And that was it. You couldn't have asked for a better situation than for this guy to just lay down and have his picture taken as the snow fell around him. All right, so let's talk about backlighting. Sunrise and sunset on a clear day is magic. I think it's one of my favorite ways to shoot. I love the rim lighting that you get. You can kind of make it out here, but you get rim lighting on the bird or the animal, and you get this beautiful golden colors as the sun goes deeper and deeper, closer to the horizon. It gets from yellow to orange to red, and these colors are just amazing. And just completely beautiful. It turns everything this orangey red color. And I also love getting animal breath. There's nothing like seeing the breath of the animal as it's coming out of their mouth, and you're just holding down the shutter. So this American widgeon was swimming in a pond, and I was I was laying down at the shore with some camo on, just waiting for the birds to swim by me. And this guy made an appearance. This is a little phalarope. I found a place where a bunch of shorebirds were foraging in this little pond. So I just found my spot early in the morning and before the sun came up, and I just waited. And that's what I have to do sometimes. Sometimes I find a spot that isn't great and doesn't have very much action. And that's just kind of the luck of the draw. You know, you get someplace. I've done so much scouting that I know where to go generally, but sometimes finding the exact spot can be tricky. Luckily that morning, I didn't get completely skunked, but I didn't get everything that I wanted, but that doesn't always happen. So. So these circles are reflections of the water. So the light, so the sun is, I'm shooting into the sun or towards the sun, and all these light, this is the bokeh or bouquet, however you want to pronounce it, is just reflecting its just sparkles on the water. And so I shoot generally wide open. So on my 500 millimeter, it's going to be f4. And so that gives me these really beautiful bouquet balls. And that happens quite a bit when you're shooting like that. So it can be a piece of fuzz in the water, you know, or a bubble, or sometimes I've had water ripples that do that same thing. And it can create some really beautiful effects there. It can have some really interesting contrasts too. For example, here with this bald eagle, the sun was hitting it and heating up its fur as well as its breath coming out, but the background was still in the shadows from the morning. So I was getting this warmth coming from the eagle, but then the background was all in that kind of bluish hour kind of thing. So it gave us some really nice contrast on that one. So I'm, again, always looking for backgrounds that are going to complement my photos or complement the subject. So this was, the sun was just almost getting below the horizon. And I had a long lens with a teleconverter on, and got this Arctic tern. As its mate was flying in, it would squawk and squawk every time the male or the mate would fly in. And so I just had to wait for when that happened. And I always knew when he was coming, because she would pick her head up and just start squawking. So I think she wanted dinner. I got to spend some time with some grebes last summer. And Charlene, you were there for this one. So when I'm in the water, I use a floating platform that I made, and it's just a piece of foam with a piece of plywood on top. And then right in the middle, I've put a thread that I can then thread my gimbal head on, and then I mount my camera on that. And so I get in there in either my chest waders or my dry suit, and I get into the water. And so that allows me to get in, and it usually doesn't take long to get the birds used to me. Once they figure out I'm not a threat, which doesn't take very long, they are totally cool with me being in the water with them. So as long as if I'm slow and quiet and low, then it doesn't spook them. They don't get stressed. They're fine. I take a really slow approach when I get in the water. I stay far away at first and gradually move slower until they just get comfortable with me. And the goal is to not stress them out, but just let them do their thing naturally, because that's when you really get the good stuff, is when it's natural. There's another American widgeon. And again, you can see these golden bouquet balls as different things in the water and ripples and whatnot are all just catching the light there. Yeah, I love getting that kind of stuff. It was a cold morning, but the light was hitting this bird just right. And this is a little bit more of side light than complete backlight. You can see it's coming in a little bit more on the side here, but it's a good example of just how backlight can really bring out the breath and the heat that an animal is exuding as the temperature is much colder than the animal. You don't get that with just shooting normally. It really accentuates when you're shooting backlit like this. I also love getting silhouettes like this. It's not always, I don't always need to get the eye. When I'm shooting like in flat light or something else, I usually want the eye sharp. That's the most important part for me, because that's where the connection comes. But there are occasions when like I'm doing backlit or something else where just getting the silhouette sets the mood that I want to portray and that I'm looking for. So those are the exceptions there to getting the eye. But I get so excited when I see the sun coming up behind something, and it's just creating this golden glow behind the animal. And it gives you just a little bit of rim light, and it just, I love it. It's like it hints at detail without giving away the whole thing. And it just kind of wraps everything in a golden glow. This one is from a few years ago. We had a northern hawk owl. I think it was on O'Malley. And I had been dreaming of this shot. I had been thinking of this shot for a couple of years, thinking I wanted a northern hawk owl backlit with the sun, with the background all orange or golden glowing. And I finally got my opportunity. This owl flew to this spruce tree, and I was on a hill, and the spruce tree was way down the hill, but where he was sitting, where it was sitting, and where I was on the same plane, which was absolutely perfect. And I couldn't believe it as I'm pulling the trigger on my camera. I couldn't believe that what I had seen in my mind was happening through my viewfinder. And that's one of the best feelings I get in photography, is when I visualize a shot and then actually see it happening in my viewfinder. I love getting bird breath. It's so much fun. I think it adds so much character when there's just these, you can almost hear the song as you're seeing the breath come out. And I can remember everything, every photo I take. I'm sure you guys are the same way. I remember where I was, the temperature, some of the details of what went into it. And this was down in Homer. And it was a lot of fun. It was a crispy morning. I also want to talk a little bit more about the bokeh. So for this one, I was down in the brush, and all of those patterns you see in the bokeh, that's from branches that were right up against my camera lens. And so what that does is it creates all these patterns as everything's being reflected and just kind of all dancing in my camera lens. And I think it looks so cool when you get all these patterns and these branches and everything to almost silhouette in the different bokeh balls. Those are right in front of my lens. I'm basically shooting through that stuff. Yeah. So, and then it creates those patterns. And it can be really neat to do that. If you can, when you're intentionally doing that, looking for stuff that's really interesting to shoot through, it can create some really cool stuff. This was late one evening on a lake in the Matsu Valley. And this loon chased off a pair of grebes that were in the area. They all booked it. And I thought, what are they doing? Where are they going? Then all of a sudden, this loon popped up, and right at the right time. So you couldn't ask for better. The sun was going down, and it was just lighting everything up in an orange glow. And now for one of the most vicious animals in Alaska. Don't let them near you. One year I wanted to get backlit squirrels, and I had this area picked out where they had a lot of squirrel activity. So I went out one morning and found this little guy just sitting on this little broken branch of the spruce tree eating cones. And thankfully, he stayed put for me and let me get the shot that I wanted. So that was really nice of him. I didn't let him eat me. Moose. I love getting backlit moose because, well, let me qualify that with saying I love getting backlit moose that have velvet still on their antlers, because the glow from those antlers is so interesting. I love seeing all the curves and just the outlines that it brings. And I just think it's really neat. A lot of times the rim lighting on a subject can be, I think, more interesting than the details you get from just, flat light or something else. You can see a lot of just the contours of the animal just from the rim lighting. And that to me is really interesting to see. All right, we're going to move on to magic hour. That's what I call magic hour, before sunrise and after sunset. I go to Potter's Marsh a lot in the springtime. There's a lot of birds there, and it's just a wonderful place to visit. But what I've noticed is that around 10 o'clock, the sun's going down, most people leave. And that's when the fun is really starting. And that's when the magic happens. After people have gone, the parking lot is cleared out, and the sun, the light gets so interesting. And so I like to go and find different places that has the opportunity to find something, either Arctic terns or dowitchers or ducks or whatever it might be there. There's always places where I can make the most of the color, whether it's the color that's being reflected in the water, or if it's after the sun has set and you get just a bunch of pinks and I can get a nice silhouette of some animal. That time is just, for me, I love it. It's so much fun. This was early morning in Kodiak Island. And on the original over here, you can see that this fog gives a little bit more silhouette to the bear, but the sky was beautiful. And I wanted to show a little bit more of this environment. I've really found that showing a lot more environment with an animal smaller in the frame is a lot more interesting to me sometimes than just like a close-up of an animal. Yeah, I think it feels like it tells the story more when you can see a lot more of the environment and what's going on. And this bear was wandering around looking for scraps early one morning in Kodiak. Beautiful grizzly bear. That is tough to see, but that is a semi-palmated plover. And you just get the hint of these outlines as it was just hanging out there. Yeah, that one's really tough to see. It's a little dark. But with this photo, it's mostly blue, except for the bird where the light was hitting the bird. The reflected light from the sun, from the sky, was hitting the bird and kind of lighting it up. And so I had a really great contrast in color here between warm and cold. There's some more after sunset. The sky just lit up. Sometimes when the sun actually dips below the horizon is when the sky gets the most colorful. And I found this osprey. Yeah, and he was just hanging out, flying around, and then it landed on this long perch, and I thought it was a great opportunity for some silhouettes. Grackles were everywhere in Florida. They're kind of like the magpies of Florida, or the myna. If you've ever been to Hawaii, there's myna everywhere, common myna, and the grackles down in Florida, they're just everywhere. And but I photographed them anyways because they're new to me. And so this one was it was early one morning, and this one was just perched up, and I thought I need to get that photo. I like the contrast, and the bird stood out really well. But I still got a little bit of light in the eye, and it worked out really well. And when it's worth mentioning that when I see something like this, and I see the color and everything happening, I make decisions in the moment of like, what do I need to do to get the sky in there? What do I need to do, you know, to get what I want? And so a lot of times that's, you know, either squatting down or putting myself in uncomfortable positions and working to get the angle that I need to get the shot that I want and the one that I see in my mind. So a lot of decisions are made really quickly there. This was a few years back up in Uktiagvik. And we didn't see, me and my buddy went up there and we were hoping to see Arctic foxes and snowy owls. We saw both, but we saw much more snowy owls and Arctic foxes. We just didn't see many. I think they've been trapped out a lot up there, unfortunately. But we did manage to, I did manage to find one. And up there, it's just, the sun doesn't really ever come up in the late winter. And so you just get this perpetual sunset into sunrise, and then it's really pretty. So the colors on this morning, this is actually, I think, the same bear that I shared a few slides ago. And this bear was fishing in a little stream. And the sun had not come up yet. And so everything kind of just had these purples, and what was being reflected in the sky at that time was coming into the water. And there was a lot of steam, mist, and fog, the stuff that was coming over the water. So it really colored the whole area in these kind of pinks and purples that were going on. So this is really just a little tough. You have to crank the ISO a little bit, but totally worth it. I think I was really happy with how that one turned out. All right, here's another Florida shot. That is a reddish egret. And this is right before the sun's coming up. So the sky is nice and golden. But you've got some blues. So you got some nice contrasts of color that are going on here. So there's a lot to kind of play with here and keep the eye interested. There's after sunset bald eagle, young bald eagle. I was driving on Arctic Valley one day and saw him on the side of the road. So of course I got to pull over and take a picture. But I love the blues. I love the blues of winter after sunset. For that little window that we get, if I can find a subject, I love to shoot that. Now here's another one from Potter's Marsh. And the Arctic terns were still busy after sunset. And so it was really, really tough getting focus on these birds as they were flying without much light. But I made it work on a few of these. So I was really, really pleased with coming away with a couple of photos. Another silhouette shot. Again, the color in the sky is what does it for me. Getting all of that color. All right, so this bull moose was, well, he was courting a female, a cow, and I pulled in at this field, and I saw them in there, and there was a shot that I had kind of visualized in my mind, but I had to work a little bit for it. I had to go march myself all the way around the field, come up on the other side, and what I didn't think about was the mountains being there. And so after I took my photo, I was so focused on the bull and composing my shot and everything, that I didn't see the mountains till I went to go process the image. And then when I saw the mountains, I thought, oh, well, that's a nice bonus. So that one worked out really well. But again, really low light. It's still really early morning, maybe an hour or so before sunrise even, probably September or so. I like to shoot through things if I can. I like to find little windows through either branches or other things that can kind of frame my subject. And so this eagle was sitting on this branch, and I shot through some branches that were covered in snow. And so I got these really nice pastels because the sky was pink, but then the coolness of the branches created this nice contrast in color here with these really pretty pastels. And it kind of looks like the eagle's floating here in midair. least that's what my son said. Dad, why is that eagle floating there? Okay. This is a young great horned owl that I saw. I was with a friend at the nature center in Eagle River, walking back to our cars, and we spotted this owlet up in the tree. And yeah, so I'm looking for the best background, looking for a space that will give me the best view of this little guy as you look down on us. So I love, again, the room lighting that you get, but it's all like that blue, you know, so it's really interesting. This one's a little tough to see here, but that's a sandhill crane, and that's on the mud flats in Anchorage. And those are actually mountains in the background that you can see. And so there was just this little strip of color. And so I crawled on the ground to get in a spot where I could get the birds silhouetted with the mountains in the background and get that little strip of pink in there. And that is a short-billed dowitcher sitting on a rock. So I just had to work a little bit. And sometimes I get wet when I don't want to be, but got to get the shot. All right, and here's that snowy owl from that Utqiagvik trip that I went on. Again, the contrast that I like in this type of thing is to see the blue from the snow and everything, and then get the contrast of the oranges and the pinks from the sky. And this bull moose, again, and for this one, most people had gone home and were done. So I had this bull all to myself. And there was a cow where I wanted to be, because I saw the sky changing colors. And I thought, oh man, if I could just be over there where she's laying down, I could get this. You know, I was just, come on, get up, get up. I was encouraging her as I was sitting on the other side. Come on, get up. And then there was a smaller bull that came over and tried to sniff her out. And she didn't like that at all. So she got up and moved. And I thought, yes, the little bull was on my team. So I made sure that everything was clear and then snuck around to where she was. And this guy luckily stayed right where he was, just grazing on the grass. He gave me one look up, and that's all I needed. And that I was able to make the shot. Okay, so the question is what to do with harsh light, because it happens, and sometimes it's super frustrating. But I have found that I like to challenge myself. And so I've been challenging myself, like, okay, like the light isn't perfect. It's not anything like what I would hope for. In all the previous examples, those are all like my dream examples of what I love to shoot in. Harsh light, not so much. But I have found some great examples of things that I shot in harsh light that really worked out. This brown bear was on Kodiak, and the light was really bad, but it was fishing in the water, and it was in clouds. The sky was all a mess. It was some moments the cloud would cover, other moments it would break, and it would be bright sun. So it was really tough. It was a tough day, and it had been on one side of me, and the light had been nice and soft. And then it walked around to this other side, and just then the sky broke, and the sun came out, and just then I was on focus on him, and he ran into the water chasing a fish. And so I just took the shot, and I decided to try to make something with it. I saw the potential when I was looking through my photos, and just boosted the contrast in post-production, and ended up with something I really liked. I loved the action and the almost kind of just different than what I usually do. A little bit more abstract there, but I think it tells the story. And I think it gives you an idea of the energy that these bears have as they're going through the water. Here's a bright sunny day. Found this yellow legs in the grass, and the sunlight was just bouncing off the water and sparkling on the water. So I decided to go for a silhouette here. And so I love the texture that I got from all the grass and stuff. Again, I'm shooting at f4 here, so the really shallow depth of field. And it created some just really cool textures. You can get these subtle bokeh balls as they're just kind of like in the background there, creating some nice textures and patterns. Here's the same thing here. It's a couple years ago in Homer. And same idea, just getting this texture in the grass, bright sunlight day, but still working with silhouettes and just trying to be creative, really. That's what it comes down to. I'm looking for something different that I can do. And so, creativity is sometimes born that way. This one is way dark, but it's okay. I played with, in Lightroom. Who uses Lightroom? Lightroom is fun, and there's some really cool tools. And one of them is a color mixer, where you can choose the color of your shadows and choose the color of your highlights. And so I took this in bright sunlight. So I was just playing around with the color mixer, and it's an opportunity to just be creative with some stuff that might normally, you might not take out to process. Opportunity to play with some stuff and just see what you can make. Post-processing is a huge part of my workflow. It can turn a good photo into a great photo. When you're going into color correct and change the temperature to what you remember seeing, and change boost the colors to what you remember seeing, because I shoot on auto light, so it's never getting what I see in my viewfinder or what I see in my mind as I'm taking the photos. It never quite gets it right. So there's always the Lightroom that I have to go to and change it to what I remember the experience being. Here's another one that was shot in harsh light. I went and played with the color mixer in Lightroom on this one too. Just gave the shadows a little bit of a blue and the highlights just a little bit of a pink, just to see if I could create something interesting. Again, it's all about creativity and just having fun and just playing with it. See what kind of stuff you can come up with. It's another one of it's the same idea here. But I just wanted to share some examples of things that, even though it might be harsh light, that maybe just don't put away your stuff and see what you can do, because you never know. And there's always the opportunity to just go black and white or high key with something. There's a common loon. Or just go black and white. This is a red-throated loon. And so thankfully, I don't know if your camera will do this, but the Z9, I can go past 1/8,000th of a second, which is really handy for bright light, because then I can darken down. Even at f4, I can brighten or darken down and stop down as needed to kind of avoid some of the really hot spots that don't have any detail. And so what I end up with is sometimes something that's really dark and I really have to go into Lightroom and fix it from there. But I really like how the texture of the water and the grass, you can see I was shooting through some grass, so there's texture and stuff to it. But I think it really turned out kind of interesting, especially with the head kind of swiveled back of this red-throated loon. Okay, so that is the last one. I'm gonna put up the screen. I'm on social media. I post to Instagram all the time. I'm on Facebook and Flickr, and I've got a YouTube channel that I haven't updated in a while. So I need to get on the ball and make some YouTube videos. But I sometimes will vlog some of my trips. So I'll record what I'm doing and talk about it and why I'm doing it. And it's fun. I just haven't had the time lately, but I'm going to try to get back to it. And then my website is right there. And with that, I'll open up to questions that anybody has.
Some of the side light and flat light images that you were showing, it almost looks like you might have been using reflector to kind of reflect some of the light back at the subject.
I don't use any reflectors, no. Sometimes I will. Well, Lightroom has a lot to do with some things. You can play with different gradients, circular gradients, radial gradients and whatnot to kind of bring a little bit more light. And they're really helpful tools. You know, it's just, you're basically just dodging and burning, but you're telling the light where you want it to be a little bit more. And with the flat light, you really have that opportunity to do that and play with it a little bit more. And that's one of the reasons I really like flat light, is because you can play with the light a little bit more in Lightroom to get it to, you know, darken one area a little bit and dodge another one, and kind of just see what works for you to bring the most interest to any given photo. Over here.
On your op, how do you use your shadow? Like, have backlight on the owl, yet the face hard press showed out. So I just did quite a bit of adjustment on the shadows adjustment. That's the question.
Yeah, I didn't do too much. For a lot of that, the snow reflects a lot of the light. And that's what I found in wintertime, is snow acts as a really great natural reflector. And so I didn't have to do too much. I did push the contrast a bit with that bird singled out, just to kind of bring out a little bit more contrast, but I didn't have to do a whole lot to it. It wasn't super dark in the shadows on that one. Yep. Over here. Yeah. Most of the time I have a Peak Design strap that I just sling over my shoulder. Sometimes I use a monopod. Monopod is great because it allows me a little bit more flexibility. I rarely, if ever, use a tripod unless I am down on water level and I need to bridge a piece of water or something. But I have a ground pod as well that I use like in the snow or on the ground sometimes. But I handhold a lot. And yes, that wears my arm out, especially if I'm waiting for something and waiting and waiting and waiting, you know, that gets really tough. So in those cases, a monopod works so good because with a monopod, I can move around, you know, it has a lot more flexibility than a tripod. A tripod really, I find that it sticks me in one place and makes it really tough to, you know, if the bird moves or if the animal moves and I see the potential for a shot, I can't just move with it. You know, I'm kind of stuck. So I opt not to, I opt to, you know, wear my arm out. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. It's not as bad as, you know, for a lot of that, you can slow your shutter down and really shoot at a really slow shutter. No, I mean, you kind of know when the action's going to happen. I kind of, you know, when you're in a situation, you kind of know what to expect in a lot of times, you know. And yeah, you might miss something, but a lot of the newer cameras too, they're really great with ISO. You know, like my Z6 II, I can crank up the ISO pretty high on that, and it still shoots, like it handles it really, really well. Go ahead. 25,000. So I rarely go up that high. You know, I'm usually sticking in the 10,000 range if it's late in the night. But even that, you know, I don't typically have that many problems. And there's denoise software too that is really helpful in those situations. So I do use that. So and I think that those are good tools to use because they really do help. And they, you know, there's too much processing sometimes. If you've seen people who've really just cranked everything over, and kind of looks like I've cranked everything over in some of my presentation, but I promise that's the screen. But I find that some of these denoise programs, which I use Topaz denoise, and it does a really wonderful job of not making it look over crunched, you know, it just kind of reduces that noise and kind of keeps some of the detail. And you can play with it to get exactly the right mix for what you want. But I've found that like my Z9 and my Z6 II, both of them handle high noise really well, well enough that if I put them in denoise, that they come out with really usable shots. So I've been really happy with that.
You mentioned you use a ground pod. What ground pod do you like to use?
Well, there's two that I know of, and they're about the same. I can't remember what mine's called, but it's just a little plastic round. It looks like a Frisbee with a 1/4 screw or a 1/8 screw in there. And so I just mount my my gimbal to that, and then yeah, it's great. It's really portable and lightweight, and yeah, it works out really well. Any other questions, comments?
Great show.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to borrow the stage for a little bit. I appreciate it.
It's always nice to be able to tell a story with your slides. So that's what I'm going to try and attempt to do. If you were born before 1945, you might remember the song, "The Snow is Snowing." And the weather is not too good outside, but the weather and the fireplace make a nice place to think about what you're going to do this next summer. The interesting thing about this song, "The Snow is Snowing," it was written in 1945 in July in the middle of a heat wave, and it's now one of the favorite songs that you will hear during Christmas time. So let's re-engineer July to January and February and imagine we're at White Sands in the summer. Or we're going over the scenic Highway 12 in Utah in March. Or we're on a super bloom in Tucson in 2001 with daughter and granddaughter. But what we really need to do is practice. This is a 10-shot image with my new Canon R5, trying to figure out which combination of lenses and my 5D Mark IV I'm taking to Iceland this spring with Colin. So this is a 10-shot image using my R100/500 lens in a studio step-up setup. Just trying to get an idea of, do I take my 100 and 500 plus my 100 macro? Question yet to be answered. But what's your depth of field with that 100/500? So I simply set up a tripod in front of the house a couple of weeks ago and looked at signs, which gave me color and lettering, as well as the trees themselves. When you're shooting with blah conditions, look for color. Again, the 100/500 at 100. Or this one with my 5D and a variable 14-40. This was 40. I like trees, so I used the tree itself as a frame for the plane, all at Lake Hood. Or at the same setting, for the tree in the background, using the wings of two planes as kind of a center focus. Or just around the corner in the subdivision that I live in for a potential Christmas card for next year. Always look for that little bit of color, as in the building you'll see on the lower right. Point words off at a sunset, and sometimes you may get a surprise. Like a tanker that's emptied its charge in Anchorage and it's on its way down Cook Inlet. The other thing that you need to do is remember when you're a passenger in a moving car, there may be opportunities to shoot while the car is still moving. Practice. This is coming back from Point Warrenzoff 2 weeks ago. What's your depth of field? Can you see not only the trees or the MACD sign and the crest of the mountains? How sharp are they? Again, through the windshield of a moving vehicle. So you get lots of practice, which is important because in my case, going to Iceland, I get one shot and I don't want to blow it. And finally, Potter Marsh with an afterglow. Thank you. For each of those images, I'm not sure how you get out of this. I'm going to, but how's it going?
I don't need that. No. And what button do I push? That one there. Okay, I'll just push the button. As you know, if you were here last month, a wonderful show. I am a Nupiat, and reminded me, be real brief here. Oh, people want to see me? God, really? Okay. In 1970, I graduated from dental school, University of Pittsburgh, and I applied for a job in the public health service, and they provided health care for the Indian Health Service and the Coast Guard. I applied for a job in the Coast Guard in Key West, Florida. I just got my scuba diving card. And in June 1970, I got a telegram. We're sending you to Nome, Alaska. Yes, true. So, you know, last month's wonderful program, it was about, the Alaska Natives. So I had a 1962 Corvette, and I said, can I bring my Corvette to Nome? And they said, no. So I sold it and bought my first camera, a Nikon Nickermat. And then I bought some film, high-speed Ektachrome. And it's a long story, so I'm not gonna get into it. But I spent a year in Nome, and about 4 months I spent out in the villages, 10 villages. So I got 2 slides for each village, or 1 slide for some. And I've given many programs. I have, in fact, first Tuesday next month, I'm going to give a program at the Prospector Society, Nome, Sin City of the North. And it was the worst year on record in Nome. And also, you can look it up. I have all the documents in my regular program. The winter of 1970-71 was the coldest on record. Prospect Creek was the lowest temperature, minus 86, just northeast of Square Banks. So here I am. I left Pittsburgh, the dirtiest town in the world back then, and now I am up in Nome. So what I'm going to show you here, I have two programs. One is 140 slide of Nome, and then another 140 slide in my cassette. Yes, cassettes in of all the villages that I worked in. And I just grabbed some of my slides, put them on a light table, and took my camera with the micro lens and snapped it. So that's what you're looking at here. Anybody know where that is, that village? In that village? Okay, the first village is Taylor. These are all 1970 now, 71. And across the bay is Brevig Mission. I say I have, a whole many slides of both these villages. So that was my first village that I went to work in. And then next I flew over to Brevig Mission. And these, I guess these are the Backstreet Boys of Brevig Mission. And the school is on the left. And when you're out in these villages back in 1970, there was no running water, and only one building in these villages had electricity, and that was the school. So that's where I would set up my portable dental office and do the work. Now, these kids were fantastic. They came out to the airport and helped me into town with all my gear. Let's see where we're going to now. Oh, now you're looking back at Taylor. There's the landing strip, and you can see I usually went out on a 180 Cessna, is what I most usually flew in and out on. And there's a dental office right there on the airstrip, and you can see, it's crazy. Now let's see where we're going here. Anybody know where this is? It's a river. You're looking to the west, Unalakleet. November 1970. It was 30 below zero. Wilford Ryan was my pilot. And here they are, fishing. This is January, Kotzebue. Look at that modern snow machine there. Yamaha. There's a story behind this. Colonel Sanders didn't know he had that there, and my father met Colonel Sanders in Pittsburgh and showed him this picture, and then Colonel Sanders sent me an autographed picture of him to me up in Nome, because he didn't know he had a Kentucky Fried Chicken up in Kotzebue. Isn't that amazing? Hey, where are we going to now? All right. This was an incredible trip. January, 1971. There's the town of Norvik, northeast of Kotzebue, if you've ever been to Norvik. And my favorite shot of Norvik, isn't that amazing? Yes, they actually had a jail in Norvik. Actually, it's pretty fancy. Looks like it has a heater in there. I wouldn't mind going to jail there. Yeah, look at that. Nice windows and door. Damn. I don't know if they had a toilet in there or not. But probably. All right, now I'm down south in Brevig. This is St. Michael's. And here I am out at the airstrip, and nobody shows up at the airstrip to help me in with all my gear. So I had to walk in there and then pay someone to come out with a snowmobile and to take stuff in there. Every village was different. It's just absolutely amazing. Oh, and I kept a diary from before I got to know him, because I went through unbelievable situations. I started keeping a diary. Every day I had a diary to write down the crazy stuff that I've seen and been through. So anyways, that's St. Michael in 1971, winter. And what's up? Okay. Once again, no running water, only electricity in the school. How do you get water? This is how you get water. And then you put it in a big tote and wait for it to thaw out. That's the school, one of the school teachers there. And here's a thermometer right next to the window. You can see it's 28 below zero. Coldest winter on record. I worked from 8 in the morning to about 5 in the afternoon treating the kids. And then I worked from about 7:30, sometimes 10, 11 o'clock at night, doing oral surgery on the adults. And the one day that I took off was always Sunday morning, because I didn't want to offend the preacher in the villages. And in this, that's Stebbins, Alaska. And this cute little dog followed me up here so I get a picture. And this past year, they had a picture of Stebbins in the Daily News. It got about 170 people there. Now it's over 600. So everything you could see to the left there in that picture in the Daily News was covered with homes. What the heck they do there, I don't know. They subsisted in what? Yeah, they still subsist. Okay, here I'm out in Savunga. Got their umiat. Just going to go out for some whales. You know, what are they drinking there? Do you know what that is? Just notice that. Okay, here's my dental office in Shishmaref. Yes, it's true. You see where the patient sits there, and then my drills and equipment there, and my portable light. No gloves, no mask. I never knew where I was going to be working, and half the time the situation was so bad out there that my assistant would quit as soon as the next plane came into town. So then I grabbed some high school kid to help me out. And as I said, it was pretty interesting. Got a crazy stuff going on. Oh, yeah, they have a clothes dryer there, and it looks like a freezer. And then that's a pantry. So I squeezed my office in there. I think we're ready just about it. Yeah, here's the final pictures. My favorite village is Wales. And if you know, it was recently in the news for what? Polar bear attack. Right. I didn't see any polar bears up there. This is the last week in April 1971. That's Main Street, Wales. Unbelievable. You can tell how windy it is. You can see the icicles are even bent from the wind. So, yeah, very, very windy place. Look at that. That's just amazing. And the teacher was fantastic, Mr. Christensen. And probably about 25 years ago, there was an article about him in the Alaska magazine. This guy was just amazing. We're about 2 miles from the shore, and he is using that pickaxe to create a path for them to drag the umiats out into the open water. Just amazing person. And I think this might be my last one. Come on, folks. What are we looking at? Diomede. You can see little Diomede and then big Diomede. I can see Russia. And look at all the shore ice. This is not land. That's all shore ice right there. And my big disappointment was because of the weather, I couldn't get out to little Diomede. So there it is. I think that's my last one. That's a brief tour. As I said, I got, you know, a slide, you know, the old fashioned things, you know, those paper things, 140 slide program of all these villages and also of Nome. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I love Wales. It's just a neat place. But,
I still
Oh.
microphone to you.
okay.
Thanks for the calendar too.
Yeah, you bet.